There are seasons in life where everything seems to collapse at once. A severe medical diagnosis shakes you to your core. A deeply treasured relationship ends abruptly, or a dream you spent years building is swept away overnight. The pain is sudden, it is real, and it visits everyone. When you are in the middle of that pain, the cultural and sometimes even religious response can be suffocating. People often tell you to smile, have blind faith, and act like everything is fine. Scripture never promises us a pain-free life. Instead, the Bible defines hope as a living, anchored reality that holds steady even as the waves crash. This is a durable, unshakable force, far removed from the frailty of wishful thinking. This diagram shows the mechanical function described in the book of Hebrews, chapter 6. Since God does not always immediately remove the storm, we have to look at how to actually forge this unshakable anchor while our lives are falling apart. The prerequisite for true hope is understanding God's proximity to your specific pain. He does not watch your grief from a safe, distant boundary. He actively moves toward it. We see this clearly with the Israelites in Egypt. After 400 years of brutal slavery, God spoke to Moses from the burning bush. In Exodus chapter 3, he states explicitly, "I have seen the misery. I have heard the crying. I am concerned." He pays close attention to the details of human suffering. Centuries later, God entered human suffering in person. Jesus arrives at the tomb of his friend Lazarus 4 days after his death, surrounded by grief. Jesus already knew he was about to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew the story ended with a miracle. Yet the shortest verse in the Bible carries profound weight. Jesus wept. He chose to sit directly in their sorrow rather than rushing past their grief to get to the solution. Because God meets us in our pain, it can be put to work. This flowchart maps Paul's engine in Romans 5. Surrendering suffering forces active perseverance. Perseverance acts as a furnace, forging deep character, which inevitably births proven, mature hope. Recognizing that this process has an intended endpoint allows for a deep, settled joy to exist alongside raw pain. This joy is a conviction, the realization that the trial is actively building something permanent rather than merely breaking what was there before. Beyond internal psychology, there is a macro perspective to human pain. Romans 8:28 promises that God is actively working all things together for a purpose. This includes the heartbreaks and the losses we never saw coming. The life of Joseph in the book of Genesis illustrates this. His trajectory was brutal, thrown into a pit, sold into foreign slavery, and locked in prison. He suffered under false accusations for years, but every single unjust setback was strategic repositioning. In Genesis 50, Joseph looks at the brothers who betrayed him and explains that while they intended to harm him, God intended it to save countless lives from a regional famine. The pain was repositioned for ultimate good. We see a similar choice during the historical tragedy of the destruction of Jerusalem. Surrounded by absolute ruin, the prophet Jeremiah made a conscious decision to redirect his gaze away from the physical devastation. Right in the middle of Lamentations chapter 3, Jeremiah declares that God's compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Regardless of the trauma you walked through yesterday, today provides a daily reset of grace. God operates as a master craftsman. He takes the darkest threads of a story and weaves them into a redemptive tapestry that we cannot fully see yet. When you are in the middle of suffering, the psychological weight makes it feel endless. Survival requires adopting an eternal perspective that looks beyond the immediate horizon. This timeline visualizes a claim made by the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians. Paul endured beatings and shipwrecks, yet he labeled his trauma as light and momentary because he was comparing it to the massive scale of the eternal glory it was producing. He was looking toward the cosmic endpoint described in Revelation 21, where God promises the total eradication of death and mourning, and promises to personally wipe away every tear you have ever cried in the dark. To survive your current storm, you have to take action now. The first step is radical, unfiltered honesty. God does not need polite prayers. The Psalms are historical records of people yelling out their anger, confusion, and grief. God can handle your honesty. Second, Isolate a specific biblical promise and speak it aloud every single day. When your emotions dictate that the situation is hopeless, you have to manually feed your hope by declaring what is actually true. Third, resist the urge to isolate. Suffering alone multiplies the weight of the burden. Reach out and allow a community to step in and help carry the physical and emotional load. Psalm 30 verse 5 guarantees best. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. Choosing hope represents an act of profound faith. It acknowledges the weight of the current pain while simultaneously trusting that your morning is coming.